right, how's everyone?
Doing well.
Good. Angela has let me know, and so everybody in the room is aware, she is going to be recording the meeting today. So,
Okay.
Just so that members of the neighborhood who can't make the travel during a workday can have some insight into what happens.
yeah, no, it's totally fine. We welcome all members of the public. These board meetings are open to anybody who wants to make it. So,
Awesome.
No concern, just want to make everyone aware.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, we can call the meeting to order. Rhett is not here, but we do have the other board members present. So, agenda item 1 is public comment. So, Angela, please go ahead.
So I guess there's a couple of things. The 2 agenda items I wanted to speak to regarding, I think it's, I don't have the agenda in front of me, regarding the consumer, thank you so much. Regarding the consumer confidence report discussion, I think that's, is it 10? Okay. So regarding item 10, in discussion with other neighbors in MUD 3, 4, 5, a lot of neighbors are concerned about the level of arsenic in our drinking water. And so we would like to request that the district explore ways that we can lower the level of arsenic. Doing some layperson research, there are several different options available to us. It is not a matter of just being the Evangeline Aquifer, because that aquifer is very large, obviously, and different well sites within the Evangeline Aquifer have different levels of arsenic. From what I understand, it pertains to the location and depth of the well, the type of well. And then there are also some other tactics that we could take, that the operator could take, involving filtering at the wellhead, blending. I'm sure there are more that the engineers know about that I have not come across in my research. So we know that there are options, and so we'd like to request the district to explore what options are viable for us, and if there are steps that can be made when we get further along in the process for the second well. If there are steps that can be made to make sure that the second well is at a better depth, or whatever technology needs to happen so that the second well's water it could be better. That might be an option. I don't know from an engineering standpoint if the second well is far enough away from the first well to make but maybe the depth is something that we can explore. And then And then I just had some questions regarding item 15, records management. To destroy notes, as a researcher, obviously my preference is to have information available as long as possible. So I was curious if it would be more cost effective to scan and store digitally, which would require less storage fees and less overhead should someone request records of any type. And then also I'm curious how that relates to subsection 551-104, which requires preserve recording of closed meeting for 2 years. If that relates at all. And I'm not sure if there's another resident that wanted to say anything or not. But those were my open comments.
So this has to do with the records management, the destruction of the records every so many years, and you think that they need to be archived longer? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
For how long?
As long as feasible with technology, there's not so many terabytes of data that it's prohibitively expensive to archive our digital records, for 10 years or et cetera. I don't know what a reasonable time frame would
Those are
be.
guidelines for the state, right?
those are guidelines from the state. So the district adopted the records management policy, and that sets forth when they will destroy notes and what we do with the records. So all of the district's records are kept literally forever. What the records management policy allows the district to destroy are just our handwritten notes to
Okay.
create the minutes of the meetings, which become the official record once
Gotcha.
the board adopts them. So you can get, I mean, the minutes from inception of the district and board meetings, those are always
Okay,
available. We
gotcha.
never destroy that. It's just our handwritten notes, and our recommendation and what the board decided is to destroy these, which all of our mud districts do. It's not just 3.5 or anything, but we take, shorthand notes and some things that, like when we're in meetings, notes to ourselves, hey, look this up,
Mhm.
that's not, part of the official record of
Right.
the district meeting. So
Okay.
that's what that is,
Gotcha.
if that is helpful.
That
But with
clarifies.
respect to actual minutes, those are never destroyed. So,
That clarifies. Thank you.
perfect.
So another question about the arsenic. I know their levels are within the state guidelines.
Mhm.
What arsenic level are you looking for?
As close to 0 as possible, but ideally, there are other districts on the Evangeline Aquifer that have closer to 4 and 5,
Sure.
and we have 9.
Yeah.
9.7.
And are they doing something?
I would not
beyond-
know.
Because like, as you said, it's kind of a natural thing,
Mhm.
an arsenic level. So, I mean,
Some is naturally, yeah. I mean,
you're saying some of the arsenic is not natural? Or it's,
well, there is research that shows that wells near previous cotton fields have higher arsenic levels because of the chemicals they used historically, hundreds of years ago, 100 years ago.
So we will be
okay,
talking about
just
this
curious.
in the consumer confidence discussion, just so you know.
Okay, great.
So we did have a request from a board member to kind of get a presentation outline of how the district's water samples are tested, what's tested, how often that occurs, since the district did have that one test for arsenic that was over the maximum contaminant level. So we do have Vanessa Chapman here Vanessa Chapa. So Vanessa Chapa with the Inframark here, she's their compliance specialist. So she and Robert will be talking to you all about that. With respect to the request for other options of how to lower arsenic in the water level, we will also be talking about that under the consumer confidence report, since this is all literally a follow-up kind of from last month's consumer confidence report. But the engineer of the board is interested and are prepared to talk about possible ways to lower the arsenic level. John Lacey with Costello is here, obviously, in addition to Jason Rudd, Michelle's usual rep. So if the board wants to hear more information after we kind of go through everything, your engineer and your operator are able to address the concerns.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question, Andrew, on the document retention and access. The conversation, kind of a clarification, did that address your need?
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Okay, so.
No, I'm reassured. Yeah, it was just, I read it, it was vague, so the clarification helped. Everything is kept. Regarding the levels of arsenic, obviously, it's great that we are in compliance. The neighbors would just like to see beyond compliance.
Arsenic's a dirty word. I understand. We all understand. It's certainly something that we should talk about and ask about.
I think we should also confirm for the residents that the statement "we are at 9" is one report. So we need to look at the totality of the
Oh,
reports.
It's been at 9 for the past 3 years.
That is a question for Inframark. Y'all have had elevated levels, but there's only been one test that was above the maximum contaminant level. But other than that, y'all have always been in compliance. And the district itself does not, just so everybody knows, the district is not setting the compliance level. That is set by the EPA. The district just makes sure it stays within that requirement. Angela, anything else for public
No,
comment?
thank you so much.
All right, agenda item 2, review and approve the minutes of the May 15th board meeting. Those minutes were circulated when the agenda went out. We did not receive any comments with respect to the minutes, so if there are any questions or comments, please let us know now. If there are none, we just need a motion to approve this review.
Motion.
We got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, agenda item 3, bookkeeper's report.
Alright, everybody, you should have a copy of the bookkeeper report in front of you. Moving past the cover page, on page 3 is your spotlight of the month. We're focusing on property tax revenues. Our district only collects operating tax revenues, and so it gives you a historical data for the past 5 years and some information on how those revenues can be used. Following that is page 4, it's our monthly financial summary for our operating fund. Pages 5 and 6 begins our cash flow report for the month. We had receipts of about $302,000 and disbursements up through approval today of about $391,000. We did include the auditing fee in these disbursements for the prior fiscal year, and we excuse me, we are issuing out the unclaimed property funds over to the Texas State Comptroller as well, and then we reissued check number 11436 to Harris County Med 216.
And board, just with respect to the Harris County 216, y'all did approve that at last month's meeting. This was for the GRP fees that they had not charged the district for the last 3 years. The check was mailed out, but it was lost. They never received it, so they asked if we could just reissue it because they still haven't received it. And so Matt canceled the check that y'all approved last month, so this is just the same amount that you guys approved, yes. And then with respect to the 2022 invoice that y'all approved, subject to 216, subject to Inframark and Schwartz Page coming to an agreement with 216 on the amount of water, the discrepancy between what 345 was saying the water received and what 216 was saying was the water going out was when they were doing the meter read. So they came to an agreement, so that check was provided to 216. So we're all good there, and we shall be up to date with respect to the payment to 216 for the interconnect.
Okay. On page 7 is your cash report for your accounts receivable for the month. On pages 8 through 11 is your actual versus budget comparison. We have the left 3 columns showing the month of May, and the right 3 is your fiscal year to date of 4 months. We are showing a little under what was budgeted, but we have some prior period payments to the supplemental water for HC of 216, which is probably the bulk of that. Pages 12 and 13 is your balance sheet as of May 31st. Following that is your sewer treatment plant fund summary, and then page 15 shows the receipts and disbursements for the month. This one is also including the audit fee for the year, and then we include the 2 pay-apps to CSEW Industries. We are holding one of the pay-apps just because it does bring our balance to negative, but that we're just pending the participant payments, and then we'll release that once we have those funds. Pages 16 and 17 is our actual versus budget comparison for that fund. Following that is our monthly financial summary for the joint water plant. Page 19 is our receipts and our disbursements for the month. This one also includes the audit fee for the prior year. 20 and 21 is your actual versus budget comparison for the JWP. The next 2 pages is your investment profile and your account balance page. We're showing just over $8.6 million in the all funds. 24 and 25 is your updated cash flow, sitting at 64 months reserve. Page 26, you'll see we collected $12,000 for the month of March on sales tax revenue. And then the last few pages, 27 through 34, is your quarterly investment report for the quarter ending April 30th. Shows your interest earnings and your money market activity. And that's all I have for you unless you have any questions.
Board, any questions for you? All right, then if we could get a motion to approve the report and authorize the payment of the invoices presented and approve the quarterly investment inventory report and authorize the investment officers to sign the same on behalf of the board of the district.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 4 is the adoption of a resolution adopting the list of qualified brokers authorized to engage in investment transactions with the district. Just as a reminder, this is an annual housekeeping item. You guys actually did this in February of this last year, but there have been a couple banks that your investment officer has identified should be included on this list of authorized brokers. So we included a red line of the Exhibit A for you all, just so you can see what 3 banks are being added. It's American Bank, Southwestern National Bank, and Assessor Bank. But it is just to include those banks as authorized brokers that the district can engage in business in. But again, as you guys know, the choice on who you actually engage in business with is up to the board. So this is just a list of qualified brokers. Any questions? All right, then we can get a motion to adopt that resolution. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, agenda item 5, tax assessor collector's report.
All right, board. If you want to pull up my report, collections for the month of May are coming in at $7,168.51. Total disbursements is $7,632, bringing your cash balance to $97,289.91. I have brought 13 checks for your review and approval today. Check 5142 is your quarterly fee to the appraisal district. The rest are your usual correction and voluntary overpayments from taxpayers. On the historical, we're going to start at the top under total TV, that's total taxable value. Your preliminary numbers are in, and they are at $702,288,724. So you can see your current one is $638 million. So it's about 11% of a jump. The district was at 99.8% collected, and as of this morning, you're at 99.37% collected. Final page is your calculation of cash, breakdown of your income and disbursements. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, any questions? If we could get a motion to approve the tax assessor collector's report and authorize payment of the invoices presented.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 6 is the delinquent tax collection attorney's report. We do not have a quarterly report for you all. The next quarterly report will be presented in July. Agenda item 7, engineer's report.
Board, if you would, good afternoon, if you follow along with the engineering report. Item 7A, design, bid and award, construction contract, none to report on that. Item 7B1, the installation of the generators at the 2 lift stations. The contractor has poured the pads at both lift stations 1 and 2, and they have presented pay application number 1 in the amount of $52,326 presented for board approval for this month. Item B2, the installation of the generator at the wastewater treatment plant. The contractor has poured the pad for that generator already. Pay application number 1 in a total amount of $69,768 presented for board approval. The cost, this is cost shared with Baker Road and Longhorn Town. The cost share for 345 is about $23,379 for that. Items, yes.
Any change in the delivery schedule?
No changes in the delivery schedule, and we had discussions from previous board, and there's an item F that I'll go into that as well. But no changes in the delivery schedule. I think the last time we talked, there was delays on the generator delivery. So, item 7C and D, easement conveyances and consents to encroachments, none to report on that. Item 7E, the hike and bike trail in 345 and 346. Shortly after our board meeting last month, David Lowe with the Harris County Precinct 4 Parks Department emailed me and said that he talked to the chief of infrastructure, and they were going to expedite the interlocal agreement with 346. I guess expedite is something different than what I define, because I still haven't heard word. I called David Lowe last week, left him a voicemail, and I emailed him, but no answer on that end. So still waiting on official word when they can hopefully start the repairs on that. Item 7F, again related to the generators. As mentioned, I had updated you guys in the delay. So there were discussion from the board about possible refurbishing an old generator, purchasing a portable one. Currently at your lift stations, there are quick connects which allows you to bring a portable generator there to connect if need be. So we're maintaining those manual transfer switches, so that if we need that, in case we need that for the winter freeze this year. Talking to Inframark last week or this morning, the only time they had an issue with that was one time that there was flooding and they wanted to bring a generator to one of the lift stations, but they couldn't get there. So
yeah, this was many years ago, like way before my time. I think our operator Leo was out there. He said it was probably the first year he was out there operating that plant, and that there was flooding, so they had the equipment to get there, but they couldn't physically get there until water came down. But in that situation, they did manually pump it just until they could get things back up and running again. So we do have options on that front too.
And we are coordinating and getting on a generators list with Inframark to kind of have a backup plan in case those times occur. As far as the water plant side, Inframark, Robert has said there's been no really issue there because we do have a generator there, and we have the multiple interconnects with the other adjacent MUDs. As far as Inframark, there was a question that is it worthwhile to buy a used portable generator? Talking with Inframark, they do not recommend buying a portable generator or a used one. It would still take some design work to kind of retrofit and get it to our needs. So,
and then because I was speaking with our master electrician of our company that handles all the generator rentals, goes through his office and his desk, and so he recommended not buying a used one, and like you said, having to fit it, first of all getting the needs to fit our particular plant as far as like wattage, and I'm not an electrical person, but fitting the needs of the plant, and then rebuilding any issue problems with the thing, to where you said it'd be more cost efficient and easier, faster, just to go with the rental route versus buying a used and having that asset.
And is that something that Inframark does for other clients?
Oh yes, not buying the used, but as far as
No,
getting
right, yeah, no, I understand that. As a reminder, the buying the used and retrofitting it to work for a district facility. We had some Baker Road mud directors who were here last month, and they said that Green Trails Mud had done that since the board was concerned with the 1 month and 30-day and 60-day delivery pushback date. I don't know how to say that. And so they were the ones who brought that up, and so that's kind of what you guys are running to ground. With respect to the rental generator, is the district already on a list for that, or is that for if
so it's kind of twofold. One, where you're on a list, you pay a fee per month, and so if you ever need it, it is there. It is it's ready for you no matter what, and the rental place maintains it. They do any if anything breaks, they fix it, do oil changes, whatever it's needed. Of course, there are situations for if you don't have one saved in your name, that you can still get emergency rental generators at the time of emergency to power the districts. Of course, in that instance, that one's first come, first serve. So there's a chance you may not get one. There's a chance you may. It also depends on the size that you need for your facility and then getting it there. Because I know during the freeze we experienced things where people had their generators saved, but the truck couldn't get there because the roads were iced over.
So do we have, for the two specific lift stations that we're discussing with generators, do we have our name on 2 generators that would fit the spec of these?
Not currently.
And so so we are on a first come, first served basis. And so are you gonna talk about what it would take to get us on the list? To have
Yeah,
our
so
name on one, or is that something you're not prepared to talk about?
well, me and Inframark facility, we had been talking about that as far as getting the specs that we need to meet that. And usually, I mean, there should be one generator that would run both lift stations. It's just a matter of moving it to one, moving it to the next.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, the need for the plant. And so it's just getting that specs down as far as what the requirement is, so that way the company can have that ready for us.
Is that something we get a proposal for, how much it would cost to?
Yes, sir.
get our name on the list? Is that an action item for us to take?
We don't have the cost just yet. We're still figuring out the specs, because depending on the specs will determine the amount.
Right. We still, we owe him some specs, so we won't get back to him, so we can get the right price, because obviously the waste, the generator, or the lift station at the generator is not big, two small lift stations.
Okay, well, before you guys go down that road, is that something y'all are interested in doing? Because the discussion was, could y'all do a portable generator? It seems like a portable generator is not something that they're necessarily recommending the district buy a portable generator. The other discussion was doing buying an old generator and refurbishing. That seems to be something that the engineer and operator are not recommending either. This next one is getting on a list, so that way if there is some sort of emergency, the district is paying some sort of monthly fee to reserve a generator, and so that would involve entering into some sort of agreement and paying some sort of small fee. Is that something y'all are interested in doing? And as a caveat, since these generators are supposed to be at the end of January and the end of February, how feasible is it to, like, I mean, time-wise, would that even be worth it? The district going down that route, spending y'all's time and money, my time and money, making an agreement, would they even be able to get on some sort of list before y'all get your actual generator?
It would, yeah, if we can't get it put in place in time for the winter freeze, which is really that's our biggest risk time of the year that we can, be able to respond to. So we'll get something next, after hurricane season. That's a great question. And if we can move forward with that, personally, I think it's a great idea to be on a list and pay a nominal fee to have, that generator that we can use.
Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, it could be, once we get everything spec'd out as far as the requirements we need, it could be as easy, like we call them, hey, this is what we're looking for requirement-wise. Oh yeah, we have these already in stock, boom, done. I mean, it could be as simple as that. I mean, they may have to order something in, or if they have their sister companies bring something locally to meet our needs if they don't have it already. So, I mean, it maybe as quick as a phone call and it's done, but it could take longer just depending on what they have versus our needs.
Are there any other backup needs, disaster recovery kind of needs across our footprint that where we would need to consider having a similar agreement in place if a generator fails? Let's say we have a backup, but the generator fails for some reason.
Like once
other
the
districts
permanent
do
one's
that?
in?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A third level of kind of redundancy. Do any other districts do that, or is just a second level of redundancy adequate in most cases?
I would say most, just if they have a generator on site, which y'all, will, they usually just run with that, because we go out there and we do test the generator, fire it up every week. I think every month they do a full load to where they'll kill the power to the plant and have it switch to the generator and then run everything under load. And then, of course, our preventative maintenance, any kind of oil changes, refueling, cooling systems having issues, things like that. And so, I mean, it is a constant. It doesn't just sit for 6 months and all of a sudden you need it at full blast. So, I mean, of course, the board's more than welcome to have that extra level. There's, it can definitely be done.
What is the nominal monthly fee? Have we said that?
It would depend on the spec. That's what we're going to find out.
So those are the two questions that we need to answer for you next, is the fee, and then is it worth getting on the list, can we get on the list in time for this winter freeze? So we have two questions.
I mean, I would say sooner better, because we're gonna, it's looking like it could be a hot summer, and judging by summer's past, brownouts,
Some outages.
we could have some outages just based on heat, so.
Yeah, so I think really the question that Kay asked was really an important question, is how fast can we get on this list so that we can get the benefit from it?
And to, just to, put your mind at ease in the meantime, that when I did speak with our operator, I spoke with Alan just kind of historically on the district, that in the time, like on the sewer plant side, the power went down, that the wet well that's on site is so large that they never needed to do anything because it was able to hold it until power came back on and then run it through the system as
So
normal.
we have multiple levels of redundancy from a sewer perspective, right? We have the storage tank, which is, as it's running, it's not always full, right? There's capacity in there, so that's number one. And number two, we have generators, either they're on site right now or will be for these two lift stations, and we're looking at getting a portable generator in the meantime for redundancy. And all those generators are regularly maintained and checked on a weekly and monthly basis to make sure that in the event of emergency they work.
Right. And then we do have a preventive maintenance schedule just for your, like I said, your standard oil changes and level checks.
That, and from a water plant perspective, we have a generator, backup generator, but we also have interconnect, so we have multiple levels of redundancy there as well.
Right.
So, it seems like y'all wanna move forward on potentially paying a nominal fee.
Action item is move forward.
Well, I was gonna say, do you wanna appoint one or two board members to work with Inframark and Costello outside of the board meeting to move forward? Because if you wait until next month, I don't know how long it's gonna take to get all the information. Nothing might be available to next month anyways, but in case it's available earlier and with the hot summer coming, y'all wanna have one or two board members work with them outside of the board meeting, kind of have them appointed as a committee.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Hot summer's here.
What? Yeah, I agree, yes.
I think it was supposed to be a below average year for hurricanes, but I think that's
Gosh,
been,
don't say that,
I
you
think
just
that's,
jinxed us.
I think that's been revised.
Doesn't we already have names before?
One of your options is a worst case scenario, if we weren't able to get on the list for a generator, is, like a bypass pump, they, guys running diesel, you have to come out and install the diesel, but you could potentially get on a list for one of those. If you couldn't get a generator that short period of time, to allow you to just drop that down into the wet well and pump straight to the force main, that would be just a worst case if you weren't able to get on that list.
And it's more readily available than a generator.
They're generally more companies with less demand for the pumps than there are for the generators. With the whole trees, everybody's very acutely aware of the generators.
So would that be the equivalent of just pumping out a septic into a temporary holding tank and moving it somewhere else?
Well, that would be a fourth option, would be just to backtrack it out and haul it away. But what I was talking about was just like a pump, just got a hose and drop down into the wet well and connect to the force main. So you basically just using diesel to pump past the lift station. So it would be something you could set out there and it would do the same thing as the lift station. But I don't think we need to go there. I'm just saying, if we couldn't get on the list.
Sure, well, maybe that would be a discussion for another meeting, if there are roadblocks here.
All right, well, let's have, do you want to do one or two board members? It's up to you guys.
I'll do it with Aaron.
Okay.
We're across the street.
Okay, all right.
And that's all for my report, other than the action item on the pay application.
All right, any other questions for Jason on engineer's report? All right, so the motion would be to approve pay application number 1 for the lift station generators payable to CSEW Industries, and pay application number 1 with respect to the jointly water treatment plant, also payable to CSEW Industries, and then appoint Aaron and David as committee members to work with the engineer and operator outside of the board meeting on getting on a reservation list for a portable generator. Anybody want to make that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, agenda item 8 is the status of the acquisition of the property owned by Second Baptist Church for a second water well. Rhett was able to connect with somebody in the church after last night's meeting, and the offer was received. Just as a reminder, I hadn't gotten any sort of communication back from the church, so received confirmation, it was received, and it is under review by their attorney and members of the church board or whomever it was that will be making that decision. So still don't really have an update for you guys, except that the offer is still under review. So hopefully we will hear something soon. All right, any questions? Okay. Agenda item 9, the operator's report.
All right. So everyone, turn past the cover page here. We have our previous action items. I did speak surge protection. I did speak with our internal rep that's been working with the contractor to get that. The contractor wasn't able to provide a hard delivery date. It's just supply chain issues. They said approximately 3 months out still of the 20 to 24 week original time frame. So that one's still pending. Everything else is in place, just waiting on that automatic transfer switch to come in. And then of course the collections, CCR will go over that after. So current action items is just in regards to our well and our well bowl and everything that's along with that. So I have the details breaking down, and if you'd like, I can just run through the executive summary real quick, and then we can touch on that last. Is that good? Okay. All right, so going to compliance side here, water distribution, all the back T samples came back compliant. Water supplied through 2/16 for the months at 1,958,000. Billed for 345, 19,908 for 346, 4,334. Accountability at 89.32%. The well GPM at 1,600 while the well was up. And then wastewater treatment and collection, all compliant on that front as well. On operations side, we had our standard monthly flushing in the district. We had 1 meter over 1 million that was changed out, 4 leak repairs, 3 levels in sod, and then what we had discussed in previous meetings with the water plant 1 and the repairs for the lightning strike and getting all that wiring and everything redone. So that's coming through on the invoice side. And then I'll say well motor repair, which the insurance did cover a portion of that, which I believe was the well motor was 47, and the insurance covered 26,000 of that. So, and then under sanitary treatment, just our monthly chemicals, nothing under collections, builder services. We had just had a CSI fixture inspection, and the customer care. You can see our letters. 43 that were sent out, tagged 17 of those. Flipping over to the next page, we did have 3 disconnects last month, and then as far as this month for write-offs, collection, none for the board's approval. All right, so if we flip to the next 2 pages here, this is going to our action item in regards to our well. And so we had just a reminder of everyone, just kind of the situation of what occurred, where we had the well motor started having some vibrations, heavy vibrations, which is an indication of something down the hole having a problem. And so we had CNC come out there, get everything pulled up, take a look at it all, and there's a list of issues. Our pump hole that's down in hole is completely wrecked and needs to be replaced. And so we do have our well is currently down. We are at interconnect right now, and so we're just as far as getting everything back into place under our own power. We have our cost here. There are some options to discuss, but currently we are getting a rental item in place, so that way we can our spare motor. I don't know if y'all recall that we had a spare one at the plant for such instances, and so we have a CNC doing a pull apart of that, checking everything, putting it back together, and that's going to be sent downhole with their rental equipment. So that way our well will be pumping under its own power. We'll be able to have the 216 at full blast to use up those gallons, and then in about 6 to 8 weeks from that point, all the new equipment will come in, all the rental stuff will get pulled, our stuff will get put in, and then we're done. And so the and of course, we did some math calculating that out as far as the cost of the rental versus the cost of being on the interconnect with West Park. And so it is, I have the math written down here. There we go. That with the rental and then a cost for putting everything in, pulling everything out, we're looking at about $59,000 for that. Where if we used it for the cost per West Park, using their water would only be at $56,000, so it's a very small difference. But of course, we'd be pumping under our own power using that 216 water.
And for, as a reminder, y'all authorized RET to move forward after last week's meeting. This happened, the well went down, or the vibration started right before the last meeting. Y'all authorized RET to work with your operator and engineer to get the district's well back online. So this is more for informational purposes, but authorized this. And it was determined and recommended to move forward with using West Park's interconnect just through getting the district's well back online. Since it's the summer month, it's still getting, instead of using West Park's water for like a 10-week, 12-week period, y'all's emergency interconnect agreement with them only authorizes y'all to use it in an emergency situation for 30 days. We did go past that 30 days, so we sent a letter to West Park requesting it for the additional 2 weeks so we could get our, I did 20 days, so that way there was a little buffer in case something, which hopefully it won't, but in case something's wrong. So they have said that that's no problem, but especially with the anticipation of a very hot summer, it was recommended to try to get off of West Park's interconnect and get y'all's well back up and running. And it was about a $3,000 difference.
And this 8 to 10 week delivery on the equipment, when did that clock start?
It hasn't. Oh, it has? As the district's well back online?
No, well, as far as because that's going to be including the rental time frame, and so they're already ordering the parts to meet that time frame. So that process is going right now.
Okay, so how far are we into that 8 to 10 week window?
A week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be on water.
We'll be on water for just for about 2 more weeks with West Park until the districts or until CNC does that.
The rental equipment and the rebuild of that spare well pump.
There was a spare
Inspection.
well. If y'all remember, it was like 3 years ago. The district's well pump went down, and y'all had also put in a new well pump, and y'all determined to have to rebuild the well pump that failed, so you had a spare in case something happened. Well, something's happened with the new one, so you still have that spare, but your operator and engineer have kind of lost faith in the work that Allstate has been doing, and so they had this other company come in, and that other company recommended doing a check of that spare motor that y'all had sitting there for 3 years to make sure if they put it in, nothing's going to happen. So that 2 week period while we will be on interconnect with West Park is just for them to run that test and put their rental parts with that spare motor down to get the district's well working. But they are still to actually fix everything else, I guess. That was wrong with the well. That'll be an additional like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, just to getting those parts in fabrication and then getting it installed.
And a new motor would be included.
So yeah, we do have the option
That is
here.
a question.
Yes, so we do have because our previous new one that's been completely torn up and has got us in the situation. So it's not recoverable from what we're told from CNC, and so we have our spare that's going to be used with the rental equipment, here in about 2 weeks, and so we can run that with all the new stuff in and not have a spare, or we can purchase a new one, and then we can put the new one down there with the new stuff, or we can keep the one that's going to be rebuilt with the new stuff and keep the new one as spare. Just kind of what the districts, whatever y'all would like to do with it.
And what is the cost for getting the whole new pump?
Sure. So the whole new pump is $33,832. That's the first line item on the sheet here on provided by CNC.
So it's really the first question is, do we want to continue to have a backup
Correct.
pump motor? So that's the first question we need to answer.
Right.
I would say yes. It looks like we made a pretty wise decision 3 years ago when it was, to keep that motor. So I would say yes.
And then I guess the second part of that is, purchasing a new one when everything gets put in that 8 to 10 week time frame. Do we want the brand new one to go down the hole, or the one that'll be running with the rental equipment.
How long did the old one last?
Old one will be the spare.
No, I know, the one that just burned up.
About 3 years.
Yeah.
It was just 3 years, so if we put a new one in, 3 years and the spare, I mean, that's what we can,
Well,
Well,
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Jason, what does Costello recommend on, should they put in the new motor or should they put in the old motor? The one that they have as the spare?
I think it goes away.
Yeah.
I think probably makes sense to go ahead and put the new equipment in place.
And just,
Take the spare out.
yeah,
Okay.
seems like.
How old was the spare one that they're putting back in? I don't recall the prior time they got that.
I don't know. I know it was, when it was rebuilt, that was about 3 years ago. As far as the age before that, I would have to, check with Alan and Leo. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
How long does a new motor typically last under our circumstances?
Right. Well, I would say, there's variations or variables to consider. Well, motor length. Some will, obviously we had one that burnt up in just a few years, and then some that run for, 15, 20 years. There's a lot of factors into it. I would say probably a good, guesstimate would be probably about 10 years on the normal.
So is there a root cause as to why this one only lasted 3 years? Was it something environmental, or was it just a bad motor, or?
Well, I think it's just some of the stuff downhole is getting older, and so some of the meshes and things like that are I guess not as fine anymore, and so it's just age.
And all that's gonna be new?
Correct.
So they're gonna put new screen, new piping screen?
I believe because they're doing maybe Costello can help more with the terms of this, with the steel fabricated discharge head, the stuffing box assembly, all the the air lines, the reservoirs, the pipe itself.
Generally with the well, there's 3 main parts. There's the pump itself, which is the bowl down at the bottom where the impellers are. There's the pump column, and then there's the motor, which is up on top, and it's got a discharge head, which is basically just the elbow. And so, as far as stuff they're replacing here, I think you could just maybe this one more time.
Yeah, so it's going to be the bowl, so at the bottom here, the 640 foot of the piping, the complete assembly, the 32 spiders. I can't remember what those are.
Okay, so the bowl is the pump part down at the bottom. The complete assembly is finished. That's the pump column, and then the spiders are the bearings and things that hold the shaft in place. If those wear out and then the shaft is out of alignment, it can cause a lot of damage to the pump. So I think this is a conservative approach where you get all new components where it's not going to tear itself up.
Is the problem the perforation? Is stuff getting into the well that's causing it to burn up faster, or what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm on the fringe of my. I know some engineers, but I'm not one of them.
I think with
So the casing is perforated at the bottom, so that in the formation the water comes in. I don't know if that's a mesh or what it is, but
Generally what happens is there's a screen down at the bottom and it's got a certain size opening. And over time, those will sometimes enlarge. So you might have more sand into it. But generally, I think when they do the well test each year, you're looking to see if there's any sand in there. But generally, what will cause most of the damage in the pump is the shaft comes down and it's got these, we call them spiders, which basically holds the shaft straight. And if that gets out of alignment, it starts moving and that starts tearing things up.
yeah.
And so by replacing that, those bearings that hold it all straight, I think that's the majority of the problems we run into.
we did have the discussion about that with CNC and the screen, and they looked at that and they thought it was something that probably isn't an issue. Maybe a decade down the road, that might be something of concern. But as of right now, they didn't see any reason to make any changes on that front.
Nice second backup.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so just to make sure I have everything correct, so we'll, once everything's in, we'll put the new one in. The one that's being rebuilt right now will be our spare.
How long does that process take?
Which process?
Just when you get the new one in, you're gonna pull one out, drop the other one in,
Just a couple days,
a couple days.
Yeah. 2-3 days, and they'll have it done. So it doesn't take long. It's just getting everything together and ready, and then moving it on site and just pulling up, putting down.
Awesome. Thanks.
You bet. All right, well, that is all I have for my report. That was the only action item for consideration for the board, other than our standard delinquent process with tags and letters and all that good stuff.
I do have one to add. It's sub-item H under the operator's report. This is an annual item. It is authorizing your operator to update contact information and descriptive information for district facilities to these governmental entities, so that way the district's facilities are on that critical load list in case there is power outage or somewhere the district wants to be on that critical load list, so that way your facilities are first in line to get back online. So it's the County Office of Emergency Management, Public Utility Commission, and then the Division of Emergency Management of the government. Your operator usually updates and provides that information to those entities. Any questions? Okay. All right. So, is there anything else, Robert, before?
No.
Okay. All right. So the action items would be authorize your operator to purchase that new stage bowl for $33,832 and move forward with getting a whole new bowl for the district's water well. And authorize them to update and submit that information for the critical load status. Did I mention a second? Okay, all in favor? Agenda item 10 is the consumer confidence report. So Vanessa is here to kind of give the board just kind of an overview. There were some questions at last month's board meeting with respect to the consumer confidence report, samples, testing, and how all of that is performed by the district. So,
And I did bring a printed copy again, just so you have a reference point.
so everybody has the final approved 2022 consumer confidence report. Kind of refresh your memory that Robert and Vanessa, I'll just leave it to you guys.
Well, that's if you want to kind of do the once over of how it's all done.
Sure, so just starting with the sampling itself, TCEQ contractor holds that schedule that TCEQ gives them. They contact us when they're ready to come out and collect the sample. We have one of our operators or field techs meet them out there. And once that sample is collected, they send it straight to a state lab, DSHS. We don't get a choice of what lab is used to do the analysis. And then once that's complete, we usually get a copy of the lab report, and those are the results that we compile once a year for the CCR. So that's how the sampling part of it takes place. And you'll see on the CCR there were 2 samples basically collected for 2022. Up until August or September of 2022, the district was on a once-a-year sample schedule. And then because of the elevated result from that sample, the state decided to move them into a quarterly sampling schedule. So the first quarterly sample was collected in October of 2022, and they've already collected the first and second quarter for 2023. All of those samples have been below the MCL, so those are, but the 2 for 2022 are the ones that are noted on the CCR, and because a single result doesn't necessarily constitute a violation, it's the locational running annual average. That's why you'll see on the CCR that it's all in compliance.
And so there's 2 samples run every year, but each sample they run tests for different chemicals, contaminants,
Right, so there's two chemical groups that they run on an annual basis, it's the disinfection byproducts, and the, VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Each one of those has multiple analyses that are performed from each sample. So in total, you know, if you look at each individual analyte, and it comes out to be about 22 or so tests that are done per year. But that's not including also the monthly coliform samples that are collected. So we're actually doing closer to about 100 samples per year for 345 water. And we have not had any exceedances. As a matter of fact, the majority of those results are non-detect or below the detection limits.
Are all of the samples pulled by a third party independent?
All of the entry point samples are. So the only thing that Inframark, well, it's not even Inframark, the lab actually comes out and collects the monthly coliform samples, and that we do have a little bit of control over as far as what lab we utilize. But Inframark operators are not collecting any samples.
And you mentioned two different kind of grouping, test groupings, I think, if I understand that correctly. Do we test all of those groupings 100% every year, or are there some that are every 2 years, 3 years?
Right.
Every...
So the two that I mentioned are the ones that are sampled every year. There are other chemical groups, synthetic organic compounds and things like that, radionuclides that are on different schedules. So some are every 3 years, every 6 years, or every 9 years.
So where would arsenic fall on that schedule?
Well, it was part of the annual sampling, but it's now quarterly. And there was,
Set by the state.
yes, that was a determination by TCEQ. Because when I did see the result, I contacted them just to kind of get a heads up. I was expecting to get a notice of violation since it's a once a year sample, which would have put it over the MCL. And I talked to the chemical coordinator at TCEQ, and because the district had not exceeded the arsenic MCL previously, they elected, instead of issuing a violation, to move it to a more frequent monitoring schedule.
Do we have to, you say you pulled 2 quarterly samples so far, we have the results of those?
Yes, we have the results, and they are posted online as well.
Yeah, I think there were. I think one
Yes.
was about 8.7, and one was 7.
7.
Yeah. I mean, they're, and of course we had our that the district paid for that third party go and test a number of months back, and that came back under the level as well.
And just to remind you all, the sample for the arsenic test that was run on the sample in August of last year, that was the one that was slightly above the maximum contaminant level, which is what NCL stands for. The board, to, I guess, appease your own minds, you all live in the district, and make sure maybe it was just a bad bust before doing anything, and we hadn't gotten any sort of, the district hadn't received any sort of notice from TCEQ at that time. Y'all had Inframark do a separate arsenic level test by a third party, and that came back negative. But not negative, but it came back where it wasn't above the maximum contaminant level.
And that was within what time period? Is that within 30 days? Does anybody know?
I believe we did that test. It was what, 4 or 5 months
I
ago.
think it was in January.
Yeah.
Well, within the, we had something that exceeded,
That was in
the range,
August of
right?
last year.
and then we did another third party independent right after that. I was wondering, what was the time period? Between the first time we recognized it and then we did that second
The
test.
first time we found out was in August. That was the one run by the state. That's what the sample date was. That wasn't necessarily the district received notice. I don't recall when the district got that notice. Then it was quite a while later, but the state did pull another sample in October, so about 2 months later, and that one was under the
I got you, okay.
maximum contaminant level.
60,
But the district did not run its own third party until January, I think it was, and I think we got those results in February. I think that's
I
when
think that's right.
it was brought to the board's attention, and our attention, that there was one test for arsenic that was over that maximum contaminant level.
So what concerns me is that you know, this is well water. It's deep. It's from a pretty consistent source. You know, you wouldn't think you'd see a lot of variability. the 10 to, you know, having a range of 10 to 7 for arsenic, that's quite a range. And do we see any correlation with anything? So example, is it seasonal? Is it based on high usage, low usage? Do we see any correlations when it's high and when it's not, when it's lower? I'm not sure who I'm asking. I'm looking at you because you're looking at me. Everybody else is now.
It's really hard to say because prior to this year, it had only been a once a year sample.
Because it may, or is it, you know, is there that much variability in the testing? I mean, the labs, they vary quite a bit.
I mean, do keep in mind also that everything this is on, you know, parts per billion, so it's
Sure,
like 1/100th parts per billion.
But we're also, I mean, it's, if it were surface water, I understand, but this is well water. It shouldn't, you know, we pride, I mean, that's the big selling point of well water is that it's very consistent. It's, once you get things locked in, you can treat it and you're taken care of, you don't have to worry about it. But that's, so I'm wondering if maybe it would be worth it to do another test, do our own test again, only send it to 2 labs. See
Okay,
the
so to
same
see if there's
result.
a lab
So
variance.
get a sample and don't take 2 samples, take 1 sample and send it to 2 separate labs. I don't know, I'd be
And we have seen, different results, not specifically for arsenic, we've done it with other things like gross alpha, where we've had districts with, you know, gross alpha problems, and the state lab comes back at a much higher level than any other lab that we send an analysis to.
Yeah, because if we don't know what's causing the variability, then if we're trying to solve a problem that we don't even know really how the magnitude of the problem, or whether it even exists as a problem. I mean, 7 is higher than 4, no doubt about it, but you know, what is the level we're going for? That's the other question part of it, you know, is then we're kind of chasing our tail. You know, we're chasing the wind, or whatever you want to do. It's like, I'd be curious if we could isolate something anyway.
Are we defining the problem as something different than what the state defines as a problem?
I know.
I mean, if we've only had
You know.
one sample in the last 2 years that's above,
I know.
is that a problem?
People
Well,
are concerned, so.
Since 2002, there's been 31 arsenic tests run, and 1 has come back slightly elevated.
Since 2002.
Since 2002.
Well, I'm just saying that, like I said, I see variability, quite a bit of variability in something that shouldn't have a lot of variability, I wouldn't think. But so I'm just wondering if we can, you know, if we can call the state out a little bit on testing, if we can, if it's worthwhile
Why?
having, why?
No, I was gonna say, well, I. No, I was gonna say, the
Because
variability that.
Texas doesn't make
Yeah, right. Do y'all, and I know this is putting you on the spot, but do y'all see other, mud districts have any sort of variability with their arsenic tests?
I've not seen it with arsenic,
Okay.
but we do have a district, that, you gotta remember, you're pulling water through sand layers into a well,
Mm-hmm.
and if the groundwater table rises or falls, you need to be pulling different amount of water from a different layer of sand. And so, every site is unique, every well is different,
Sure.
and
I guess I
Very,
think of
very
pulling it from a single layer. There are actually several, the aquifers are actually very, very layered. So
Right.
it can be, yeah.
you know, the aquifer extends from Texas to Florida. And I mean, it can be an Evangeline aquifer and it can be very different from this side to that side. So there's just a lot of variability in this as well. And the weather is never exactly the same on any particular day.
But I know the earth is a very good filter too on these aquifers. They do a really good job of filtering. And here's a case where it's not filtering, it's adding to it. It's stuff that's in the aquifer that's adding arsenic to the water, as I understand it. So, because I mean, you know, I know there are dangerous chemicals. You don't want those in the well. But the earth is very good at filtering that stuff out, given time and distance. And, you know,
I mean, I think the key thing is, 20 something plus years, and it's been consistently within the limits. So.
just trying to address people's fears, that's all. Anyway.
And so just to circle back, is the board wanting us to do a third party test and have
That's
it.
just a suggestion. I mean,
We're happy to do it. I just need y'all's okay to before we do anything.
Well, we'll be coming up, I think, on the next quarterly sample from TCEQ, so if we do that, it would be good if we can, wait and collect it at the same time that TCEQ contractors out there.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah. And then send it to another, yeah.
That way we're getting, similar,
What's the cost of a test?
that,
I think
Hundreds?
I know we did. Yeah, it was. I want to say it was just 200-300 because I know we did it before, but I'd have to look up what it was. But it was
Send it to
minimal.
more than one lab. Because, I mean, for a couple, if you're out there doing it,
Do
you
it.
cost do the state plus 2 more. And
understood.
that would be a good sample for us to see if,
Yeah.
kind of your theory is
So
the
just
lab, is the
question.
actual lab the variable?
Well, that's just it. There's so many variables. It's hard to start addressing the problem. You decide to go down.
Okay, so you guys want to have, Inframark
What she said.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be at the same time as the state pulls their test and y'all will send it to 2 different labs, whatever sample you get the test, and it's just for arsenic, I'm assuming, right? Okay, since that seems to be the concern.
That
So,
will be done approximately.
they collected in April, so they'll probably be looking to come out in July.
so next month.
And it would probably take a while to get this done out.
I don't think it took that long,
I'm
not
gonna
more
say
than
like-
30 days.
Yeah.
So we're on 216 water now.
We're on West Park right now.
Well, that's the other
Yeah.
question.
To make sure it's our water.
That was gonna be my next, yeah.
So I will say, West Park, yes, we do have our operators out there working with 216 to try to get some of that water in, but it's, kind of a fine balance on getting that to where you have enough during peak times, but not too much during off times. And so there is some 216 water coming in, and they're, playing with the different levels that we're getting into where we're not, making them struggle to do our efforts.
Right.
And so we do have some of that coming through currently, and so it is a
To
little.
clarify though, we're testing our well water. We're
Correct.
testing water that will,
In July.
in July.
Yes, ours will be, it'll be coming up out of our well.
Yeah.
Way before that.
Where do the samples, where are they tested, at what location?
Well, the state collects it off of the sample tap of the GST. That's what is identified as the entry point. So this is not a raw water sample. This is after disinfection.
And that would also be if we have 216 water coming in, doesn't it get put in our GST? So that could
That
potentially,
could affect this.
could affect it.
So
So
there's another variable.
there's
Yeah.
another.
There's a lot of it.
I think
There
there's,
is, lots of
yeah.
It is.
So the fact is y'all had one elevated test, since the district has been around since 1991. Are y'all, and I understand residents' concern, it's higher than they want it to be. Y'all since then have had 4 tests or 3 tests, I think, that were in around the 7 to 8 level. Are y'all interested in,
I think it's good to know if the lab results can be duplicated. I think
oh, no, yes, no, I meant, do you want to get that information before trying to figure out what, if anything, you could do to lower arsenic? I mean,
Are you, I'm sorry, I thought you were going somewhere else.
oh,
I don't
where do you think I was?
Well, I mean, we just introduced a whole bunch of variables in the last 60 seconds, which is the tests that we do may or may not involve other disconnects. And do we know, at least going back 12, a year or 2, covering the time period we elevated, what disconnects were open and closed at the time would be another correlation.
you've looked at other districts. What are the other districts' arsenic levels? I know you cited the lower ones, but are we the absolute highest? Or
We are.
there's
My- I was
no-
asked not to speak during the meeting, so I'm just confirming that I can answer questions.
If you're asked a question,
Okay.
yes, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No, that's
didn't know the
okay.
rules.
No, I didn't want to I didn't
I
want
appreciate that, but no, if you're asked a
Interrupt.
question on the
Okay.
board, we're not in the
Talk to
conversation.
the.
Yes, we are the highest at neighboring of neighboring muds that I've looked at. If you give me your contact information after the meeting, I can share the website that has all the neighboring districts.
I'm sure we can, yeah, we can find that out.
It's like Texas Water Watch, it's
Yeah,
all
Texas
over the
Drinking
TC
Water Watch,
Yeah,
and you
all
can,
over the TCEQ's website, if you ask, what's in my water, Google that, it'll all come up.
Okay.
you can search any
You can
district.
search- Yeah, you can search any district, and it should have all of the past, at least since 2002, all of the past water samples and tests run, and
So when we take the sample, do we have enough history to correlate back to each of these samples, going back to the beginning of 2022, let's say, or 2021, just take 2 years back,
Mhm.
when the interconnects were open and which ones were open, if they were open at all, with the sample. So we can see if there's a correlation
Of course.
between a particular interconnect or not.
Yeah,
That's
so we
just
can-
another variable that we might as well look at if we're going down a path of trying to eliminate some of the variables.
And I will say that we can look back historically to see if there's an interconnect open, 216 or West Park or anything like that. Of course, there is a chance, I guess with 216, since that goes directly into our GST, that we might have been receiving water from them and it was off, but it was still in the tank when the sample was taken. Of course, I'll have to look.
Another
But
variable.
yeah,
It's a very imperfect system.
yeah, well, just remember too, just like John said, it all depends on, be like, weather related, level of the aquifer, all that type of stuff that I don't think they're gonna be, your consultants are really gonna be able to determine. So we might be able to figure out one variable on whether an interconnect was open at that time, but then again, as Robert just said, just because it wasn't open doesn't mean that there wasn't water from 216 in the district's ground storage tank. So
Or you can at least look at when the interconnect was open.
Right.
Was it open within, I don't know how long it stays in the tank, 24 hours, 48 hours? or
it just
whatever.
depends on usage.
But, anyway, it's an imperfect
no, yeah, I was
process,
just trying to say,
but at least it's something.
Yeah, we can
right,
start
for us
pulling
to
data.
kind of start to, put our minds at ease on, can we eliminate this variable?
Mhm.
So Angela had a good question at the beginning. I want to make sure we address the question. Explore ways to lower arsenic. And since we have Inframark here, are there treatments?
so that's where I was going with mine. Do you guys want, we have your engineers here to talk about ways to do that. I didn't know if you guys were interested in exploring that.
I can want
Okay, there you go.
Sure, absolutely.
One of the ways is talking to John on this is about 8 years ago, one of our other muds did a pressure filter tank where that basically oxidizes the arsenic that's trapped in the sand. And 8 years ago, that was about $800,000 to do that process.
8 years ago,
8 years ago, yes. And
gone down since then.
no, no, we tried to get a contact. He wasn't able to get back to us, but he kind of he knows that it's more than 800,000 now.
Is that like a one-time installed good, or is that 800,000 a year, or?
No, that was
For that particular project, it was $800,000 capital cost, and then there's a periodic cost to replace the filter media, which is every 5-10 years.
You're starting at the most expensive, you're gonna go to the
I
cheap.
think that's
Be cheaper to just put an RO system in everybody's home.
that's
So is that
Is that it?
the only option, or are there other options?
There's the enhanced coagulation, but
Yeah, enhanced coagulation is something that they do at like City Houston water treatment plant. You only have a massive facility, and it involves a bunch of tanks and chemicals and pumps and all this other stuff, and it's really not a feasible option at this size facility. with the district facility. So we've not seen it applied to any district. It's more just a really massive type plant facility. So I would not recommend that in this case. I think really just I don't think there's any other thing option.
So, assuming that if there was one source that was higher than the other source, can you just use the interconnects to dilute it and keep the drinking water down below maximum?
You would have, if that is an option, you would have to enter into agreements with neighboring districts. You only have an emergency interconnect agreement, and other than 216, which I'll already take 30 million gallons a year. So, anyway, sorry.
That would be an option if there was enough water available to neighboring districts.
So remember too, y'all are trying to drill a second water well in the
Well, yeah, I mean,
And so I don't know.
another well might be, give you a very different result too.
Yeah, so I know we're still in the beginning stages of that, trying to get the church to respond and offer, but there's always that as well.
And where does this treatment occur? Is it, where in the process? Is it, water coming out of the ground, going through the, holding tanks, et cetera, pressurizing out to the.
For the line that we did 8 years ago, it was basically between the well and the ground storage tank. So you have the ability to bypass this filter and go straight into the ground storage tank from the well, where you can basically reroute it through this pressure filter and then up into the tank.
The district, I mean, I don't know if you've gone this level, the district has space to do that on it. Do all water facilities have that space?
It's about the size of a hydrant, so it's not something we've looked at
Okay,
whether
yeah.
whether we fit on an existing site. But, we could look at that.
What's it called specifically, so we can,
I just asked if you had closed
what's the technical term for it? Is it pressure treatment? What's the technical term?
I can give you
Yeah, let's just call it a
a
pressure
short
filter.
update if you guys want.
Pressure filter.
Because basically the tank is under pressure, so that you don't have to repump it. It goes through the
again, not just outside the box. But, what if, I don't know, do RO systems take care of it? Does it do an RO system filter out arsenic?
I believe, yeah, you could go to Home Depot and each individual homeowner can install their own.
The district could give the,
No, we would have to
Yeah.
look into that. It's using public funds for private benefit, so we would have to
that would
look
make too much
into
sense. That would
whether.
make too much sense.
Change our role.
Yes, so I mean, I would just have to look into whether you do it for all residents, if that doesn't mean somebody moves out, you don't know if someone's moving out, if they're renting, that type of thing. I would just have to look into whether you can actually do that.
One other thing I was just gonna mention, if with any change in treatment, in the treatment process, as you go through the TCEQ approval for that, it will kick the district back into 2 consecutive 6-month monitoring periods for lead and copper at double the number of samples. So right now, the district just requires 20 samples, I think, every 3 years. If y'all were to change the treatment in any way, it would be 40 samples every 6 months, in addition to water quality parameters.
All right. Is there anything else, board members, y'all wanna talk about on consumer confidence report? For water quality?
The next steps are, we're gonna do some additional testing in July.
Yes.
And we're going to look for correlations with our interconnects for the historical testing for what, let's just call it the last 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense, everybody? And we'll see what that tells us and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, have some other questions, but we'll go down that road. Let's see what we get.
Alright, then if we could get a motion to authorize your operator to collect those samples, when the TCEQ collects its samples, and then send those samples to two different labs.
Motion.
Second,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Alright, agenda item 11 is the Green Trails Monthly Report. We have the May Green Trails Monthly Report for you all. May did have an increase in several categories as it notes, suspicious vehicle person and then disturbance. But overall, you guys look pretty good. There also is that beat activity report from the constable's office for the month of May, which is attached for you all as well. No action items for the board's consideration. But if y'all have any questions on any of the activity noted, let us know. We're happy to reach out to the HOA to get additional information or the constable office. Any questions? All right. Agenda item 12 is the status of the implementation of the mass communication messaging system by Classic Messaging. Y'all requested Dominic attend today's meeting. By the time I reached out to him, this wasn't until late, so I apologize for that. He already had another meeting he couldn't get out of, but he said he will for sure come to your July board meeting to talk to you and understand your frustration with how long he's taken. Robert, do you know if that letter went out with district's water bill? Or maybe he sent it separately?
He was going to send it separately because he never sent anything to me to send out through ours.
I saw
I
one.
got a letter.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So,
It's not the correct version of the letter, because it mentions trash service, but I got a letter.
okay. Well, at least the letter went out.
Went
So, and now residents should be made aware that there is this emergency mass communication messaging system. So if anything that you all determine is an emergency or anything like that happens, y'all have a way to communicate with residents. Anything you all would like to talk about with respect to this agenda item? Okay. All right, agenda item 13 is the status of the installation of the hike and bike underpass on Fry Road by the Willow Fork Drainage District. It was like 2 years ago, I think you guys were willing to contribute $50,000 to the project. We had comments to the proposed agreement that was provided by the Willow Fork Drainage District. And they said they were looking at additional parties to be involved. So they apparently approved the agreement back when I sent all of my comments, but just had kind of failed to let us know. So that agreement is done. We covered the terms of that agreement with you guys. If you would like me to go over it with you again, let me know. But basically, instead of the district providing the money up front like they requested, you'll do half when they've actually awarded the project, and you'll do half once it's completed. So I would expect that to possibly come down the pipeline soon. But they did let us know that Nottingham Municipal Utility District and Harris County 346 have joined on, and they are submitting an application to Harris County to get funding from them as well. So they are hopefully moving forward with the project. But that's the only information I have, y'all. Anything else?
That's consistent with what I've kind of seen on social media. So.
Okay. All right. Agenda item 14 is an annual housekeeping item. It's the completion, execution, and filing of the voting system annual filing form relative to district elections. So we're required to do this annually, even if you don't hold a director's election. We did not hold any sort of election this last year, but in the past, y'all have authorized Schwartz Page to file it, complete and file it on the district's behalf with the Secretary of State, which basically says information about the district, y'all did not hold an election, and then you file it. Any questions? All right, if we could get a motion to authorize Schwartz Page to complete and file it on the district's behalf. Okay, all in favor? All right, agenda item 5, again, is that annual housekeeping item. We did touch this briefly under public comments, but it's the request from the Records Management Officer, which is the district secretary, to destroy the notes of the Board of Directors meeting from February 21, 2022 to February 20, 2023. And as I mentioned, this is just the notes that we take during the meeting so that the minutes are the official record of the board meetings once they're actually adopted by the board. So there's no, we have a motion? We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, agenda item 16 is the attorney's report. I do not have anything additional for you all. Agenda item 17 is discuss the status of potential and litigation involving the district and authorizing action. We do not have an update for you all, so there is no need to go into closed session today. So no need for agenda items 18 and 19. Agenda item 20 is future agenda items. Is there anything anyone would like to add to a future agenda? Alright, just need a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.